shining light on the paranormal, the supernatural, the unexplained. By the time we finish, you will know the unknown. Know the Unknown with Henry San Meguel. It is Know the Unknown. Welcome to it. We're back. I was going to say live, but it's recorded. But it's a brand new episode. No, we haven't done it in a while. I was on break from both of the shows, but now I'm back. And just in time, it's my time of the year, October. So when else would you start listening to? Well, if you like the paranormal like I do, it's all the time. But most of you, this is when you start getting in the Halloween mood and the Halloween spirit. You get out the decorations, get ready. So I figured, you know what? Let's start with something fun. What do you do during Halloween, during October to get in the mood? You talk about scary stuff, ghost stories. You tell ghost stories, or you start talking about, hey, remember that time when I heard this and I couldn't explain it? Well, a lot of the shows are coming back to the networks, a lot of the ghost hunter type of shows. But don't forget that nowadays, you don't have to go to TV. You can watch it anytime you want. One of them is called My Haunted Diary. You can find it on YouTube, youtube.com/myhaunteddiary. I have a link in the description. You guys can click on there and subscribe if you haven't. I guarantee you, once you watch 1 or 2 episodes, you're going to want to. And on to talk about it on the brand new Know the Unknown episode for October is the person who created it, James Edward Garcia. James, welcome to Know the Unknown.
Great. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So let's start with the obvious question is, you know, what was it, who was it, or what was the one thing that sparked your interest in the paranormal?
Well, I'll have to say that was my grandmother. As a kid, she would tell me these stories, and I got to learn about her. She would talk about the fact that she sees dead people. And, you know, you think about the movie The Sixth Sense with that kid who sees dead people. I don't think it was on that level, but she would see people who passed on, some of which would be family members. She also had the ability to, in her dreams, to reveal things to her in a premonition type way. So she would see things before they would happen, and she'd tell me about that as well. And just her experiences, because she had the psychic abilities. So she'd tell me all these stories, and I was fascinated, and I was scared at the same time, but I always wanted to hear more. And so that kind of pulled me into the paranormal type of haunted stuff that I grew to love.
You remember the reason why she told you, or she started telling you?
Well, I guess you know, was a part of her life. She's no longer with us in the body, but she would tell me those. Maybe it was just one story she started to say, and then maybe my brothers and sister, you know, they got scared and left. I stayed, so she had an audience. I was the audience, so she was happy to talk about it, and she'd talk more and more about it, and my enthusiasm probably, you know, pulled out more information from her, and she would tell more stuff in detail.
So obviously, when she told you this, obviously you were young, and that was like you said, that was your first exposure to anything paranormal, supernatural. What besides? Okay, it's a little scary. Do you remember what was your first thought or feeling when you started hearing these stories?
Well, I guess my imagination. Because some of the things she would tell me, for instance, would take place in the place I was living, where she lived. I lived with her and my family, my parents and whatnot, my sister and brother. So she would tell me about something. She saw this entity walking up the stairs to her bedroom, and I would see it. I'd be looking at the stairs because it was, you know, right in that peripheral where she'd be telling me from the living room, and so I'd just be seeing that, and so I just constantly be looking at those stairs, thinking, oh, it's going to come any moment. I'm going to see this thing. Ooh, and I'd go back and look, and so, you know, expecting something to happen. So that anticipation of the paranormal, of the ghosts and things, were something that was haunting me, if you will, in my mind. I was always thinking about that.
Yeah, no pun intended there. Now, as you were growing into adulthood, did that interest in the paranormal, did grandma's stories, did they stay with you, or did, you know, life get in the way and you forgot about it, then it came back later?
Well, it stayed with me in that I got interested in horror movies, anything that dealt with that, especially if it was a haunted type of place where ghosts would show and stuff. I was more interested in that than the slasher type movies. But so that I gravitate to any of that kind of stuff, or or something about an actual place where something happened, and whether it be on television, they'd show it, or some event, I'd want to go to it if it was an event in town. It was there. So then ultimately I would have experiences of my own. So that's when it really started to validate and have a meaning for me in my own experiences. And so things did happen, and it scared me, but again, it was something that I was excited about at the same time.
Do you remember? Do you want to share what was that first experience that you clearly remember?
Oh, shoot! So seems like I've forgotten more than I remember, especially as I'm getting older here. But I do. I remember. Well, I don't even know if I can call it paranormal. One thing just came up, so I'm going to talk about it. It's an out-of-body experience, which had happened to me, and so I'm above myself, watching my body below me, and I'm actually moving around, and I witnessed my room and going out of my room and going places and coming back into my body, and that was a very strong experience for me that I feel ties in with the paranormal, because you're dealing with metaphysical and things like that at that point, and I tie them all together in a way. So I had, let's see here, object fall from a shelf. I remember that. I was hearing sounds on one part of my bedroom as a kid, and I remember shouting out, "I dare you to knock something off the shelf." I don't remember the exact words I said, and then something fell off the shelf. Poltergeist activity in this case. I don't think it was like telekinesis, like I'm picking it up with my mind, but it fell. And I jumped and I ran out of the room. That was like a big deal for me. I was afraid to be in my room at that point. That's before you could have televisions in your own room to like drown out stuff and distract you. So it was tough sleeping back in that room. I would just leave the light on at night.
I've spoken to mediums, clairvoyants, and all of them say that they think that their gift came from, because someone in their, like you mentioned with your grandma, someone in their family had it before them. So they really think that it does cross generations. Like maybe not the grandma's son or anyone will have it, but somewhere in there, a grandson, a nephew, a niece, they'll probably have it. And you think because your grandma had the gift that you probably have it also?
Yeah, I do, because of experiences I've had, and even on a psychic nature and an intuitive nature, that I can sense things, and just doing, like even paranormal investigations, doing this stuff, I've captured a lot of stuff. I seem to be able to fuel paranormal activity or capture a good amount of pretty good evidence. And I don't think just everybody can do it. First of all, I don't think everybody can sense it. They're like, oh, nothing's happening. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. You can have someone in the same room with somebody who's experiencing stuff. The other person's like, you're crazy. I think they're just not in tune with it. And so to them, it doesn't exist. So yeah, you have to have some kind of a sixth sense, psychic nature, acute sensibilities to do this stuff. So call it a gift, or if you will. And I'm not the only one in my family. My mom has it to some degree. I have a few cousins that have it, and a lot of interest in the paranormal in my family. It wasn't something that was suppressed or just told don't talk about that stuff. That's foolish, or it's evil, or whatever. Some depending on your belief systems a family could have. I didn't have any of that, so we were very liberal that way, I guess.
Liberal, or you can also call it supportive, because a lot of people who just start having these kind of experiences, it doesn't help if your family, the ones that are supposed to love you and be there for you, if they start telling you, hey, you're crazy, because you yourself, you think, hey, am I crazy? I mean, I'm seeing these things, I'm hearing these things, but the fact that your family is there and saying, no, it's normal, it's okay, that actually makes it a little easier to put up with it, I guess is a way to say it.
Yeah, definitely. So since I had that kind of supportive background in my family, so I think it made me a little more adventurous or open to, just the whole realm of paranormal.
Yeah, which leads actually to the next question, which is let's start talking about My Haunted Diary, the YouTube channel. Now, was it the same time, or when did you start deciding to investigate the paranormal and filming it? Was it all at the same time, or did you start investigating first and then said, hey, let's put it on YouTube?
Yeah, I'd say it's the last, what you just mentioned, which is first, investigating, not even thinking about filming, which goes back in with family and friends and stuff. When I lived, for instance, in Florida for many years, I would go with my cousin, one cousin especially. We'd love this stuff together. We would go off into places like a Casadega, which is a spiritual camp in like around the Ocala, Florida area. And there's all these psychics that live on the premises, and there were all metaphysical and paranormal, all that stuff is welcome there. And we would go there and experience stuff. And I even with a girlfriend once had some crazy stuff happen there. But back then, it was like we had smartphones. We didn't have the internet, so you didn't really think in those ways. I've had, even with the family, we had stuff. We'd have seances. My mother used to do seances growing up, so, no recording or anything. We didn't even think about that until later when that technology became, available, and the internet definitely making the whole thing more visible to everybody. So it was later, and especially when the paranormal shows started coming on television, the reality shows turning to I think of my Most Haunted. I remember watching that, and I was so into it because wow, this is a good idea. You can put it all together, and it's like just something you feel like you're there and you're experiencing the place. Granted, with that show, every 5 seconds I heard a little sound, the women would scream so loud I'd have to turn the volume down on the television because I'm turning the volume up trying to listen. So, maybe I'll hear something. Then they scream and it's like, oh God, I gotta turn it down and back down again. It would drive me nuts. And of course, like Ghost Hunters, when that came out, that was more of that format style. It's like, oh, this is great. And it got me more renewed interest because I did kind of step away at one point, having a family, having a kid and all that. And putting that aside, I was like, wow, all the stuff that happened to me, and I never documented it. And I had some awesome stuff happen, and I'm watching the shows, what they get. I said, wow, I would love to do that, and because I know I did get great stuff. I should start doing it again. And so I was moved back to Florida. From Florida, I moved back to New York, and eventually to Long Island, where I'm at now. And so I started joining paranormal teams, paranormal groups, and just going through the moves of what it's like to do the 101 ghost hunting format style of the day with the devices that are used to possibly capture something and how you go about investigating. So it was a good experience for me to have an actual format to follow. And then at that point, I started getting cameras and audio and said, I'm going to start filming this stuff because nobody in the group really does that in a way other than to capture stuff, but they just try to give evidence to, at the end, like we gather it all. But I got discouraged because, first of all, there's a lot of egos involved with the group, the people, the groups, and there's the drama that goes with it, and belief systems on how you should do this or shouldn't do this. And I was like, I came from background. I even studied the occult, metaphysical stuff, and they're like, because my religious belief system feels you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't use a Ouija board, but you can use dowsing rods. I'm thinking, what's the difference?
Yeah.
You're still calling out you don't know what you're calling in. I'm a scientific person because I use an EMF meter. No, you're not. It doesn't make you a scientific person. And so, to me, I just had a bigger view of how this all works. I felt in the groups I was in, and I was two different ones I was in. I decided, I'm going to go off and start doing this on my own. I feel like I don't have to worry about all the evidence because there was so much contamination, people talking over each other, and somebody said, oh, look at this voice I captured. And I was like, oh, that was so-and-so in the group. But they would get upset because everybody's very guarded with their evidence. I'm not saying they didn't capture any valid evidence, but that happened too. I was like, good, I can do some of my own, and I don't have to worry about contamination of others. I'll know I'm the only one there, so I have something I can work with here that's more substantial. And that's when I started to having some experience filming and whatnot, kind of knowing what I want to do, put it all together, and just do it on my own. And yeah, the My Haunted Diary series started on YouTube. which is still going right now.
Not the groups that you joined, but you personally. Do you remember what the first pieces of equipment you were like? What cameras, what you started using when you first started these?
Yeah, I had bought a Panasonic camcorder that had night vision on it, which I guess they call it the night shot, the Sony would call theirs. And I thought, I'm going to be filming in the dark. I got to have something that does that. And so I got that, and I got like an infrared emitter, LED emitter for illumination. So I got that. I got I guess I had an Olympus audio recorder for EVP. I did get pretty early on. I had a K2 meter for EMF detection.
Yeah.
A laser pointing temperature gauge gadget. I started pretty quickly gathering stuff and just building up to my collection, but that was the initial stuff I got, and then I eventually got like a full spectrum camera not too long after and built from that.
Now, in your videos, you say that you've done both. You've done indoors and also outdoors. Outdoors, sometimes during the day, which obviously you've got natural light from the sun. In your experience, from what you've done, what do you think is better to investigate? Is it better when you're in the dark, or when you're outdoors and you have light, or does it matter?
I think you can capture stuff, in a paranormal nature, whether it be day or night. I think it really doesn't matter. I don't think ghosts or spirits or entities, whatever you want to call it, a combination of all of that, really think, oh, I'm kind of only like, I'm like a vampire, I only like to come out at night. They're not. It's not even being thought, but it's not even part of it. So it's just better at night, in that the creep factor of the darkness, people gravitate to that more. And me too. I like watching stuff that's recorded at night with a capture of something paranormal than the daytime, but it doesn't have to be that. And the only thing I'd say at night, the difference would be that if there is some kind of presence that tries to harness energy to illuminate in a light fashion, you're going to see it from the background of darkness. You got this illumination, you can see that better, where you wouldn't see that probably in the daylight.
Yeah. How do you decide on the locations? How do you decide where to investigate?
Places that I'm in that just catch my attention. I was like, wow, I really want to investigate there, which is a lot of places, really. If I hear some stories about them being haunted, I'm interested. So, if they have a haunted history already behind them, that's enough to make me interested. Now, if they're older, I'm more interested. If they're creepy looking, I'm even more interested. Kind of like that.
Yeah. Now, they haven't been. It seems like there's been a lot on the YouTube channel, obviously. But have there been any locations where you go there and it's a bust, so to speak, where you don't get any activity?
Yeah, that's happened. Where I haven't gotten really much of anything, and I might go back, try again, and said, I'm not going to put that out as I have places like that, and I feel like, well, I did film a bunch. Maybe eventually I'll do like I don't know what you call it, but just like a film of the place and just show the scenery, because the place might look pretty interesting, and just put music and haunting music to it and give it more of a cinematographic kind of a film about the place, and just give it like a haunting feel about it because it's there, but no real evidence to produce. And so I might do that eventually with some of those places, put those out that way.
Yeah, just B-roll is what it's called. Just whatever you shoot, and then just put music or whatever behind it.
Yeah, like a B-roll thing. I think all my film is B-roll because I'm not a professional. I don't have professional equipment per se, although I just bought recently a Panasonic GH4 mirrorless 4K camera I just started using. That's more on the professional line, but otherwise my stuff is, some of it's a higher grade than I say just the stock consumer stuff, but it's within the consumer line. So yeah, I work within B-roll. I'm nothing professional. I'm one guy doing all this by myself. I don't have a production crew of like a ridiculous amount of people with high-tech equipment doing all the different pieces of it. The audio separate, the many different video, and some of it like B-roll, like you mentioned. And I remember the term B-roll being used because I was actually, and maybe you saw it. You've been watching some of my stuff when I did the Katie's Bar episode, because that got me on the Ghost Adventures show, playing Charlie, the guy who had committed suicide, as the main ghost there. So I was around all those film guys from the Ghost Adventures, and I was part of the B-roll film.
Yeah. Now this an obvious question that, or one of the first questions that a lot of people ask when they find out that you go do paranormal investigations, but do you ever fear any of this following you home?
Sometimes, and it has. There have been times where things have followed me. Luckily, I'm able to get rid of it. It hasn't. There's been a couple incidents. Well, I'm going to say one particular incident that I won't go too much into detail over right now, but it had to do with Kings Park Psychiatric Center, because I was going there a lot. I went there for over a year. Just whenever I got a chance, I'd go back there. Of course, I'm sneaking in the place. But in places, because I went into pretty much all the buildings that are still standing, and some of which are not standing anymore. And it was, I wasn't thinking anything. I was coming home, and that night I woke up, and I thought I was dying. I couldn't barely breathe. My whole body went to a cold sweat, and I felt like I was dying. It was just something took on my body, and I thought, this is what death's about. Some organs are failing on me. I don't know what it is. I'm by myself in my cottage that I live in. Nobody's gonna even know it. Somebody's gonna find me dead. I have these thoughts going in my head as I'm experiencing this, and I'll be dead for days before somebody even notices it. But at the same time, I was like, just this thing that's taken over me. It just felt like my whole being was being pulled out, and the physicality of like nausea and not being able to breathe and being stifled. Just like this. It was hard to describe now, but it was so intense and so scary. I remember I got out of the bed at one point, and I don't know why, but I went to the bathroom. I sat on the toilet there and just trying to compose myself. And what I did was really, I went into a state of like praying and just please, I want to live kind of a thing, and just going over all that kind of stuff with my own prayers involved, and was able to rid myself of whatever was this dread that came over me and was consuming me physically. That next day I was so worn out. I never told anybody until recently. I think I just told my mom. I would have never told her back then, because when she found out I was going to that place, if she knew that had happened to me, she would have done anything possible to keep me away from there. And I did still go back. So, but it took its toll on me, and I had to overcome that. And I realized something happened to me at that place that day I was there, and I followed me home and just kind of got into me.
Now, you talked about your experiences with being in a group and the egos involved and everything that comes with it, but for what you described, for safety's sake, have you ever considered bringing in another person, even if they're not on camera with you, or they're not really helping you out with the tech, but just there, just in case something happens like that? Have you ever considered that?
Oh, I've considered it and thought about it, and it put me a lot more at ease, and I could probably use them to help me do stuff, because I'm doing it all myself. It's a lot of work, especially if it's an abandoned place and you're trying to get in and out of hard spaces, and you're carrying all this gear with you on the top of it. But yeah, of course, the safety factor would be like, I'd feel a lot safer, and at least it's two of us. And so I think about it, and I've had offers, and I have done some stuff with others before, but for the most part, that experience by yourself, I kind of like doing it still, and maybe at one point I'll reconsider not doing it, especially when it's in a place that's can be not very safe to do, and put myself in a situation where I could get in trouble more with the living than the dead. I'm worried less about the dead. Because the living's what I worry about, homeless or deviants or even police, getting caught trespassing in itself can be a little scary.
Yeah, now going with that again on the YouTube channel, and then once you guys start watching on My Haunted Hour, you'll a lot of them are really really scary. Now, have any of them that you've done so far do you consider any of those extremely scary for you? Like, what's the most scariest to you?
Well, like I say, being in a place that you're not supposed to be in, first of all. There's a scare factor just in that. You're not supposed to be there, so you got that on your mind. And then anything else on top of it, adds to it, which would be, of course, parts of the building that are not safe, pieces are coming apart. It's a safety fact, something you got to take into consideration. Ceiling or floor coming through, animals. I've come up on big raccoons and bats and insects that attack me. So you got that to think about, and the toxic side of it. You want to wear masks and stuff. And I did upgrade over the years with wearing stuff that's more protective of my health. But that's all. A lot of things working against you, and makes it that much more scary. And those places are usually very creepy without bringing those pieces into it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, when you do the ghost box sessions, do you hear those? Sometimes on the video you say that you didn't hear it during there, but do you hear those sometimes even before you start the sessions? Do you ever hear voices or anything like that when you get to a location?
Without the ghost box, you mean?
Yeah.
Voices? Yeah, definitely. Disembodied voices. I'll hear that, and that's just like the ghost box. I don't always understand what was said, but I hear a voice. I try to pay attention as much as possible, and I'm in a very acute sensibility state. My senses are very heightened because I know that's part of what this is about. The spirit realm is not like the physical realm. They're not like, hey, how you doing? Or throwing something at you or waving at you. No, that's what's going on. This stuff is very subtle, and to the layman out there, they probably wouldn't even notice that stuff. So yeah, I'm in that kind of state usually when I'm going in there.
You mentioned earlier that you do pray sometimes at these locations, and obviously that means you have a faith. But doing all these investigations, has they made you see the paranormal, especially the afterlife, a little bit differently now?
Yeah, I'd say my look in the afterlife has changed anyway, because I had, at one point I'd studied like all religions, and then I'd studied occult and metaphysical, and just my own, you kind of in retrospect go over it for yourself and what makes sense for you. I've never been the type that's dogmatic and say this is my belief. I was baptized a Catholic, and I believe that this is how religion is, and I'm a little more open. I feel that way. So I borderline on things. Sometimes I'm very skeptical, actually, in my view of things. But I've had enough stuff happen that it's like, I can't dismiss the stuff that's happened to me. But I do have a skeptical side to me. I'm kind of back and forth, but I really think things are going on that I just don't feel like I can say it's black and white, and I really fully understand what is really taking place, to the point where I think sometimes when I'm hearing voices or things are happening, there's the possibility it's coming from somebody who's living. And when I think of that, I think when I mentioned that out-of-body experience, there's those out there that study this, and they do a remote viewing, and they actually can learn how to leave their bodies and do that kind of a thing, actually see things going on out of body, astral body, whatever you will, and maybe make things happen in another place. They practice that. And I know it's getting into areas that normal people or regular normal people, I don't know who normal people are, but those are usually the scary people. But anybody who's out there that just lives a 9-to-5 life, working a job, they don't think about that, I would think, for the most part. And that stuff is out there to learn, but it is out there, and it's a possibility. I mean, why not? I mean, in the world of, I mean, this whole world to me is phenomena.
Yeah. Going on that, why do you think that, especially I would say even in the last 10 years especially, why do you think people's interest in the paranormal, the supernatural, the unknown, if you will, why do you think it's the way I see it, it's like it's been amped up times 10, times 1,000 even, and it's not a morbid curiosity, it's more, you really do want to understand it and know what it's about kind of curiosity. What do you think that's been?
Well, you could say because of the internet and whatnot, I mean, all the information's readily available to everybody now, and now that, you know, you wouldn't have seen this as much, which was just television at one time, you wouldn't have seen as much of it, and so now that you have it, a lot more shows, especially with the reality TV coming into play, this falls under the perfect format for that. There's a lot more exposure to it, so when you get more exposure to something, you're going to find a lot bigger audience out there interested in it that wouldn't have been interested in it before because they didn't even know about it per se.
Yeah, I have a theory. Let me share it with you and see what you think. My theory is I think because this generation got the most realist of reality shows, that was September 11th, 2001. You saw death right in front of you. It wasn't a Michael Bay movie. It wasn't a horror movie. It was real. It was happening. You know, obviously the people in New York and Pennsylvania, it happened to people in your family. So I think because of that, people are trying to understand why. I mean, what happened when what happens to you when you die, especially as tragic as that. I think that's part of the reason why this interest has risen more since that time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you have a lot of death happening around you, people you know and whatnot, or friends, and it affects you that way. You are interested. You in some cases because you have unsettled situation. You just felt you never got to say goodbye to a loved one, and so you reach out. And what do? You start looking to mediums and psychics to get that information, and then they tell you, oh, so-and-so has been watching over you. Oh, I never thought about somebody watching over me that's passed on. Oh, yeah, and you have angels, too, and you've got angels' guides and whatnot. And like, wow. So they start looking at things differently and start exploring, understanding that more, the invisible realm, if you will, and they have an interest more in it. And it's not, something that's like, oh, that's something I would never, dismiss that stuff. They're a little more open now to the possibility.
Yeah, and you yourself, you seem to be open to a lot of things in your investigations, but is there anything that you won't mess with? Like, for example, using a Ouija board to channel something, or mirror scrying, or things like that?
No, I'm not afraid or not open to that. And I've done all that stuff before, and that's where I feel that the limitation comes into play. When you play with anything, you even taking a K2 meter out to measure EMF and then using that to say, okay, let's do a yes and no thing. You light up the lights and ask these questions. There's no different to me doing that, opening yourself up to things you only really know for sure, than if you did, the Ouija board. It's the same thing. It's no different. And I don't know why people just don't get that. It's so obvious to me. So, scrying, whatever you want to do, it's fine. Just know you're opening yourself up to things you may. Even for me, I think I'm talking to somebody. Sometimes it could be somebody else pretending to be that person, or I don't know, or that soul or spirit, if you will. It could be an entity. It may not be just a regular spirit. I know that, and in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking that. But I'm still interested in it, and I go with it just to capture something that's phenomenal. A phenomenon.
Yeah, you know what, James, you're absolutely right on that. That it's the exact same thing. I think people don't see, EMF readings, things like that, as the same as using a Ouija, because the Ouija, people think of it as, well, that's something old from the old times, and this is more modern, but it's not. It doesn't matter that it's modern or not. It's like you said, you're still channeling something, so you're still inviting something in.
Yeah, so it's just another tool that to get the same outcome, which is to try to communicate with something invisible you can't see, and you're calling on it, you're trying to conjure it. No different.
Yeah. Now I know it's just you, and you're a pretty busy guy, and it takes a while to edit these things, because again, think about it, people. When you go out there by yourself to a location, and you have multiple cameras, right? How many cameras do you usually have at these locations?
It depends. I mean, if it's a place that's a legit place and they have me come in there, like say Cold Spring Harbor when I was at the Harbor Mist there, I can, and I know I'm in a safe environment. I can bring all my stuff in there. Nothing's going to get stolen. It's locked up in there, but just me. I'll bring a lot of gear. I'll bring more than if I'm going to go to an abandoned place because I got to carry this stuff. But like the Cold Spring Harbor, I might have had, or like Katie's Bar, like 4 static cameras set up at any time, and then one I'm carrying around with me, just doing like the POV kind of filming as I'm walking around. So I'd have that many. Then I have audio device maybe being held at the same time, and I'd have some static ones set up in different areas that are known to capture sound, voices and whatnot, and I don't want to miss out on that. So the more you have out there, it means the more you have to go over, and that takes that much longer to go through it all, just to go through the possible evidence, let alone having to film edit it, put it together, transactions and transitions you want to make happen, and narrative, and there's so much involved. It is very time consuming, and I work a full-time demanding job because this is not paying me money doing this. I'm not like all the ones on television that are to show up. This is the thing, if I'm on television, I don't want to put them down, but I'm going to call them actors because you're in an acting role in a reality show, which sounds kind of strange, but they show up, there are staging things involved, and they just got to show up, and some of them don't even go over the actual film or audio for the evidence other than what they experienced at that moment. They have people do it for them, and some other people making the decisions on what's going to be used to show as evidence on the show. I'm doing everything. I'm the producer, I'm the director, I'm the cinematographer, I'm the audio guy, I'm the film, I'm putting it all together. I even do my own music, and going through this. A lot more work on my part, and I do a lot more than those actor people do on television that are so, praised and stuff. Not to put them down, but they had to do what I do. First of all, I don't think they can. I don't think they could do it all themselves. Maybe a few can, but not on the level I'm doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting to. Is that when you guys watch this on My Haunted Diary on YouTube, you should appreciate the work that James put in, because it is literally work, like you just said. Because when you watch the videos, it's really cool that you put an arrow. Hey, look down here at the lower corner, you see a shadow, and you rewind it. But again, think if you record for 6-8 hours, you yourself, you don't have a team, like you said. You have to go through all those films over and over and over, because when you first watch it, you don't have an arrow that says, "Hey James, look down here. Here's a shadow." You really gotta get a meticulous look at every single footage. So that it is time consuming. So my hats off to you. You do a great job with all these videos.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It is a lot of work. It's a labor of love. I'm not doing it for the money because I'm not making money at it. If I was on television, I'd be doing it for money, but that is not the case. So now, if that's why I was doing this, I wouldn't last long, because if I had a ulterior motive saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make money and be a star, paranormal star, and all that," that's not the reason to get into this. It's more a superficial way of thinking. And if you don't make it right away, you're going to give up. You have to be really passionate about this. I think it comes through when you do it that way. If it leads to something, fantastic. That's great. Not everybody's that lucky. Unfortunately, I don't think I fit the criteria to be on television. These production companies, these talent scouts, whatever, they want a certain demographic you're trying to cater to. You have to be a certain age. You have to have a certain look. I'm not some hot young girl. I'm not going to give a show an old guy. I wish, if I brought some hot young girls on to do investigations with me, I think I would get a ton more views. I know that. And just as the way it works. Not everybody's watching just because you have cutting edge, content of paranormal evidence going on, which should be the reason you think people would watch a paranormal show. But not to put so much down, but a lot of these television shows, more than not, are reenactment shows, and that's bores the crap out of me. I don't want to sit there and watch, "Oh, this is what happened to me," and it's no real footage. And then they have even paranormal investigators on there that were part of this investigation, whatever happened to this family, for instance. "Oh yeah, and we captured this and that." And then they cut to what would be what they captured, but it's not their evidence. It's a reenactment of their evidence. Like, what the hell is this? How can you take this seriously?
Yeah, I gotta say, haunted collectors, John Zaff he's not, he said it himself, he's not spring chicken, so you don't have to be that young, so there's still hope for you, James.
Well, for him, and when I hung out with him drinking coffee, he had drank 2 large coffees, and we hung out and he smoked cigarettes outside. Oh, John, I hope you don't want people, I don't know if it's a problem me telling that he smoked cigarettes or not. Hopefully not. But he's a cool guy, and he told me a lot of stuff. He was still in the middle of, I think, filming his last season of Haunted Collector at the time, where I was with him in Philadelphia. He's a real cool guy. He's a little older than me, but not that much older than me, really. So, yeah, but he, being part of the family with, what's their name? The couple, Warrens.
Yeah.
And so, at least he had, he did his time, and he wasn't doing it for, television or anything when he was doing it way back. But he's in it for the long haul. And so eventually people started saying, you got to respect this guy. This is something that, he's like the grandfather of the paranormal. They could look at him that way in a sense, because he is from that. So it's good. But there's a lot of others, I'm sure, out there that didn't get that exposure that he did. I'm glad he has. And I'm glad that the Destination America, Destination Truth is a show. The Destination America picked up the 3 seasons of the Haunted Collector. So who knows? Maybe he'll want to do more after that. Maybe they'll contact him and say, "Hey, somebody will." I know Sci-Fi. There was the original place that showed that, along with the Ghost Hunters and stuff, but that didn't last long. Sci-Fi kind of went sour, to say the least.
Yeah, well, they kind of went back to Sci-Fi again, which kind of makes sense for them.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some stuff, and there's some good stuff out there still. And I don't watch that much of it anymore because I just don't have the time, and I don't have anything but basic television, so I don't really get to those stations. But I still enjoy it. But now that I'm doing it, I'm so engrossed in my own thing. I don't, that fulfills me. Where when I wasn't doing it, I was just watching shows.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I know it takes a while to go out there to film and to edit and get it uploaded to the YouTube channel. But do you have any upcoming investigations?
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, right now, things that I'm doing right now. For instance, on the YouTube channel, I don't know if you watch, but what I'm putting out right now is the Cecil Hotel, which is a place that no television show is going to get to do an investigation there. They won't allow it. So, but yet there's going to be a movie coming out. They cut a deal with Sony Pictures, the latest owner of the hotel, and then you have the American Horror Story basing that season 5 on the hotel. So they're really tough there with security, and you watch the episodes I'm putting out right now, you'll see I had a kind of battle trying to capture, do stuff there. But to me, that place is like, wow, I want to do this before nobody could ever, who knows? This is a place I'll never get documented if I don't do what I feel, and I want to experience it. That's why I went there. And there's other places I've done already that are like a mind-blowing evidence, real scary stuff I haven't even tapped into yet. They're going to come out. I've got a huge stack of places I've already been, and in abandoned places. I got a bunch of them that are going to be mind-blowing that eventually I'll get to put out. But right now, I'd say within this last week, 2 things I did. Well, 2 weeks ago, I was at an abandoned subway station in downtown Brooklyn, and so I was there filming and did like an investigation there. I went back 2 different times, and then this last Thursday of this week, I was at a theater in Brooklyn that was abandoned for like 30 years. A beautiful theater, just decrepit. I wish I gotten to do it when it was abandoned, but in the last 3 years or so, they redid the whole place. Somebody bought it and just brought it back to its beauty and glory, and it's gorgeous. And so I was allowed to go in there and film, but I did it more B-roll style, as you called it, just to film in there, just to capture the whole place. There's been a couple of times I was in there, I saw like an old organ. I said, hey, can somebody play this organ? And I didn't hear anything at the time, but you never know. I could have still captured something without knowing it. But it was more just to experience the place and film it. So I will eventually even use that and make probably an episode one day. So because it was just great footage I got in that place.
Yeah. I gotta say, I really like the Cecil Hotel footage that you have. Anxiously, like everybody else, waiting part 3. But to me, I've heard about the Cecil Hotel before. It has a different name now, but I've heard about it before. But honestly, I see the Cecil Hotel more as a cursed place more than haunted. I mean, would you describe it that way?
Well, yeah, it's got a dark history, and so I mentioned that the place seems to be cursed. And it's not, we're not the first two to think that, just based on its history. I mean, people seem to go there to commit suicide. I mean, granted, it's the kind of clientele that place attracts.
Yeah.
Very cheap to stay there, and it's not in the best area of town. So, there's a higher percentage of possibility for suicides that happen in a place that would be one of them. But, you have murders going on there. And you have murderers staying there, like serial killers. I mean, you see them in that room with Richard Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty creepy in itself. And just knowing that, if you didn't know it, would it be as creepy? Probably not. But the place just has weird stuff, weird energy. Believe me, because I was there, I experienced that weird energy, and being sensitive, if you will. I really did pick up on that there, and I was starting to get really sick being in that place. I was like, oh, I gotta just push myself to finish my time here. I'm doing 3 days and nights, and I'm gonna do it no matter what, other than maybe possibly getting kicked out before that, which came close to happening. But which you'll find out if you watch the episodes. So yeah, that place is kind of creepy, to say the least.
Yeah, another one that I don't know if you know about, or you plan on doing an investigation there, is in San Diego, the Horton Hotel. I've stayed there, and just when you walk in, it feels like the air just gets heavier, and I think it's the third floor. There's most of the activity happens there. So that one I know for a fact it is haunted.
The Horton Hotel. I've heard of that place. I think somebody mentioned it a few times to me, but I haven't done it. I'm trying to remember the one place that I think it's in San Diego. It's La Beresima or something. I'm trying to remember the name of the place. It goes way back during Spanish war times and things. I forgot the name of it. I know the Ghost Adventure guys were there many years ago.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name either, but I remember the Horton Hotels specifically because I stayed there, like I said, and I experienced some of those things.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm usually as I've had more experience years ago, even though I was totally into the haunted thing and would love to go into haunted places, I'd be afraid to go by myself. With experience, and especially with filming now on top of it, I'm much more daring. As you know, because I do that, I go to places by myself. And the adrenaline of fear still exists for me, but I'm much more willing to stand my ground. Per se, like an incident where I'm in a place very creepy. I'm in there and say it's in the dark. I'm by myself and stuff is happening. Where in the past time I said, "All right, I'm getting out of here. I've had enough. This is just too intense for me." Now I say, "No, I got to stay." This is when it gets really creepy for footage, and this is when the really spooky stuff starts to happen. And a lot of times it does, so I just stay and just tough it out and don't leave. And I've stayed in places by myself like that. I lived in a haunted place right here in Long Island. I had a landlord who lived on the premises above me, but when I moved in, weird things were happening to me, and I confronted her. I said, "This is what's happening to me. Did somebody die down here or around here? Something in your place?" And she got so scared. I knew something was up. She didn't want to talk to me about it. She was, no. She was like that. Yeah. Once she got to know me and realized what I did, she told me, the guy before you died while living here. He didn't die in the room, I was thinking, but he got hit by a car coming back home because he went to some bar down the road and got killed. So his stuff stayed in there for like 2 months till they could find family to gather his stuff that was left in there. A month after that, which is 3 months total, I moved into the place. I started having all this stuff happen. I knew something was up. And then to top it off, she passed away while I lived there, and her family that were not too far away just said, "Oh, okay, we got to figure out what we're going to do. Till then, you have the whole place to yourself." So here she was. She lived there for a lot of her life, and she loved that place. She's gone. this guy, I had this stuff going on, and so stuff started happening above me. I'd hear footsteps, and I knew I'd be by myself. I was like, oh God, I live here. I don't know if I like this, even though I'm totally into the paranormal. Not in my own home, you know. It's like, no, that was a whole different, what's the right word? It took it to another level that I really didn't like. So, and that's what I enjoyed. But
it's one thing when you go somewhere and you can go away, but when it's where you're living, it's a whole different thing.
It is a whole different thing. And so near the end of living there, and I was just like, I had enough, ready to move in this place. And they were already going to start looking to sell it. And I said, I got to get out of here anyway. I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to start filming it and investigating this place somewhat and just tough it out, because this will make, you could say, it's, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Exploitive. And I think the paranormal in general, you have to have an exploitive nature to you to want to do this, even if you have good intentions. But so I took it to that point where I was like, I've got to do this because it can make a great episode, even though there's some horrible stuff sad stuff that happened there. So I started to, and weird stuff definitely happened. I haven't even gone back to it. I don't even have the heart to even look at this stuff. But I did film some there a few times at the end, and eventually, as time goes on, because they've since sold that house, the woman's family, and I would never give her name out or the address or anything. I'd cover all that up, but just having that just be seen, what I experienced and went through there, will be pretty spooky. And I'm eventually going to do it. I don't know when. It's been a few years already, and I'm still not ready to look at it.
Yeah, so again, the YouTube channel is called My Haunted Diary. It's James Edward Garcia. James, thanks a lot for coming on. Now, of course, I talked about the YouTube channel, but do you have any other social media that you want to give out, like Twitter or Facebook or anything like that? If you do, go ahead and give them out now.
Well, I mean, I'm on there, and I don't use them that much. I'm so bad with that, but I do have a Twitter account. It's, it's My Haunted Diary, so it'll be like the @MyHauntedDiary, I guess. Facebook, I think it's my.haunted.diary. If you're going to look it up, because somebody actually grabbed My Haunted Diary, and it's really a dead site, with pun intended. They really didn't do much with it early on, but since they had the name, I had to put a period. But if you look it up and even do a search in Google, you're going to see mine come up more than theirs, because I got a lot more exposure, because I'm putting stuff on there on Facebook. And then I do have the other one, Instagram, which is a My Haunted Diary Instagram, called that. How you look it up, I don't know. You can figure it out if you just do a search, I'm sure.
Yeah, people know how to find things nowadays. So again, it's James Edward Garcia, My Haunted Diary YouTube channel. James, thanks a lot for coming on. You're welcome back here on Know the Unknown anytime. Really looking forward for part 3 of the Cecil Hotel. So I mean, all of them are, but this one, you're right. More than anything, it's especially the ghost ball section that you have. Those are some of the most intense things I've seen on your videos. So again, great job on that.
Yeah, and to think about it, I mean, I know I'm coming to the end here, but on that first episode, I'm sitting here talking to a voice that appears to be Elisa Lamb.
Yeah.
She's talking to me and saying stuff. I mean, that was pretty intense. I know there's people who use the ghost box stuff out there, and they'll capture a random voice in here and there. But me, I'm interacting with spirits or entities in real time while I'm doing that, and it's pretty intense. So yeah, if you want to hear Elisa Lamb saying something, which I think is Elisa Lamb, at least it appears to be, giving some valid information on what happened to her, you got to check out the episode.
Yeah, I have you here now, so let me ask you what I was thinking while I was watching the thing. I know you're not supposed to be recording all this, and you'll see, you guys will see it on the video, your brushes with security there, but have you ever thought about taking this audio to the police?
I have. I've thought about it. Well, yeah, I thought about it, but then it may lead to something like a lawsuit against me for filming. Yeah. But you know what? I don't know if they can do it, because to be honest, they come at me for filming there, but they have no signs at all saying you are not allowed to film here, you are not allowed to take pictures or anything. There is none. So they really don't have anything on me. They can come at me out of nowhere, which startled me at first, because I've gone to haunted places that are hotels that are active, and they're 5-star hotels. They had no problem whatsoever with me. This place that is pretty much a freaking dive, like no filming. No, they're like gonna come at you like you're killing something, like you have a gun. I think if you had a gun, you'd probably be okay over the camera, the way they act.
Well,
So,
a couple of things with that. One is they really can't say anything, because when they tell you can't film, it's in what's considered public areas, like the hallways and the elevators, the lobby, things like that. So it kind of makes sense. But you're filming yourself in the privacy of your own room. One. The second thing is, if you take this to the police, it's now part of an investigation, so they can't really interfere with that.
yeah, like I said, it came into my in my mind about doing it. I said, wow, but I figured, look, it's out there, it's on YouTube, it's plenty of exposure. If somebody wants to present that, they can. Even that's for instance, that subway I was just at, I thought I saw a body at one point, but I wasn't sure, so I started taking pictures of those huge rats down, and this is going into where the train tracks are, and I could smell urine. Stench was really strong. There's a lot of homeless living down there. I didn't see any, but I thought it was a body at a distance, but I'm not sure, so I took a bunch of pictures, and it's iffy, but it almost looks like it was, and I thought, oh shoot, should I have gone to the police and said something? And I didn't, but I'll have to go back and look at the pictures again, because I haven't had any time to go back. But if I can really define there was something there, I probably will do that.
Yeah, so again, it's James Edward Garcia. James, thanks a lot again for coming on.
All right, thank you.